We here to present about this very important topic, and my topic title is very similar to what Dr. Pramod has mentioned, from import dependency to strategic resilience. So because we all know that we are very much dependent upon import of quite a few, not quite a few, I'd say a large number of raw materials from overseas. So that is dependence. So how to become resilience, come out from the dependence, not fully, but still become resilience. So one provocative question to the audience or manufacturer, say suppose if China stop exporting, say 25 critical starting material KSMs from tomorrow morning, how many days we can survive in terms of production? Running 60 days maybe, whatever we have in stock. No? So if we ask that question, probably many of us will rethink that this is very, very critical at this point of time, because we have earned that reputation of pharmacy of the world because we are producing the end product, a large percentage of end product and supply across the world. But how we produce, we are heavily dependent of the starting material. So that is why, say, once we analyze this problem, it is not about manufacturing problem. So India can manufacture. That's why they are pharmacy of the world. But their dependency upstream, downstream, they are very good in terms of manufacturing. But when we talk about upstream, that means that key starting materials, then problem comes over there. So that is the challenge for India. And here I have presented some data here. Say almost 60 to 70% of KSMs we are dependent on, particularly from China and few other countries also. And then there are around 33 of APIs out of 58. The actual KSM source are not reliably tracked. So that 60 to 70%, whatever I have mentioned, it may be even more. But then this dependence is known for a long time. But why we are continuing despite knowing this fact is that this dependency was known for a long time, but then why we have been continuing like this? So it is not about negligence, it is the economic factor. So Indian manufacturer, they can synthesize those KSM, it is not a problem, but it will not fit with their budget. So China is supplying those KSMs at much cheaper rate. And consistently, whenever some other competitors coming into the market, they are reducing the price, they are pushing out the competitors. So that is the main problem. So our manufacturing of KSMs are not actually fitting economically. Yeah, recently, you have some of you might have read that Ramcharan's book, China's 90% model. It is just published a couple of months ago. He has mentioned very categorically that China has built such an ecosystem that they can take care of the close to 90% of the global demand. So they undervalue, they adjust their currency, they sell their KSM with marginal profit, and whenever some competitors come into the market, they push them out. So even our government is implemented that PLI, and there are some improvement is visible, but still, say even after PLI also, our that import volume of APIs from China has rose up to say 30 to 45%. And even China have cut 40 to 50% price. So PLI, partly it is working, but it is a short-term measure. So it cannot serve the purpose for long term. Let me introduce one framework, and which is very relevant for today's topic. We are talking about resilience. So my framework is resilient. So each and every letter of this resilience starting from R to T signifies one important parameter. In the next slide, I will be discussing that, but overall it represents that how we can move deliberately from diagnosis to economics to capability, then ecosystem, and then ultimately national resilience. So you can see here all the letter I have written in detail. It's a little crowded slides, but let me spend couple of minutes over there. So first of all, R means you have to recognize the real problem. Real problem here is single geography. Real problem is not China. Say suppose if we import the same 60-70% of raw material from a different country instead of China, same problem will exist. So problem is not actually China, it is the single geography, single supplier, you know. So that is the main vulnerability. And then economics, as I mentioned earlier, that's our cost of KSM, whatever we can produce at present in-house, most of them are not fitting in terms of cost. So buying from China, it is much cheaper. Then S means supply chain. So again, here we cannot stop import completely. So that is not the reality. We have to depend upon. But key raw material, what are the critical raw material for our key APIs or end products? For that, we have to be self-sufficient. Other than that, there will be other raw material. We have to diversify sources. That is the supply chain part. And then I means innovation over imitation. So how we can reduce the price of KSM in-house? So we have to use all the advanced technology in terms of synthesis, say flow chemistry, green chemistry, biocatalysis, even AI-assisted synthesis. So these are the things we need to adapt. And for that, innovation is very, very crucial. Localize selectively, as I mentioned earlier, localize selectively means, so do not stop importing everything. So whatever the key raw material for the key products for which our revenue are means dependent significantly, for those we have to localize, we have to synthesize in-house economically. Then industry, academy, government collaboration, that is very, very crucial. So without that we cannot develop that economic process, and without academic participant we cannot even take their intelligence, how we can develop new technology and all those things. So proper collaboration is very, very crucial here. Then ESG, even though say ESG many people know these days, but many times it is just taken as a compliance framework kind of, not beyond that. But slowly this ESG becomes so crucial that say overseas buyer, they will select the companies who are ESG compliant even if price is little bit higher. So that's why ESG is very, very important. And then national capability. So just like say you remember our Prime Minister talked in the Independence Day, that's how we can be Atmanirbhar, no? So he talked about semiconductor manufacturing, energy, defense. So in the manufacturing part, this KSM part also need to be taken as a national capability. Then think about ecosystems, all the factors, no, starting from industry, academia, and then within industry, plant, supplier, technology, everybody need to work together, not in a silos manner. So that is the ecosystem. So when this ecosystem comes together, so that become resilient. So that's how my framework resilient mean here. Now, say, as Dr. Pramod was also mentioning, that whenever some raw material procurement issue happen, people immediately finger supply chain. But that is not the supply chain issue alone. It is a board issue, it's a governance issue. So today, board need to ask that what percentage of revenue depends upon single geography, which KSMs have no alternate supplier. No, we have to build our resilience. Do we know that our tier 2 suppliers for key raw materials? Do we have the geopolitical risk mapped already in our risk register? And are we really applying AI-enabled supply chain visibility for early warning what is happening across the world? So these are the critical questions board need to ask. And then resilience has a 4 key dimension. It is operational, it is economic, it is technological, and geopolitical. But most of the cases, most of the companies, they focus on operational part only. But along with that, we need to focus on economic, technological, and geopolitical. All the things I have already explained whenever I was explaining my framework resilience. Now, beyond import substitution, our India's vision should be by 2035, it should not be just import substitution. It should be world's most trusted, resilient pharmaceutical supply chain. So we need to move from import substitution to self-resilience, to self-reliance, and then global trust, including ESG. So resilient cannot be built when crisis arrives already. We need to act proactively. So question is no longer whether India can manufacture KSM, they can manufacture, but how we can be more economic. The question is whether India can build an ecosystem and world trust for the next 50 years. So that is the opportunity India is having now, and we need to work, everybody work as an ecosystem towards that. So thank you very much for listening.